Hey y'all, this is She Buys It with Whitney Nicely.
Is it recording? Yeah, here we go. Yay! Hello, welcome back to the She Buys It podcast. I'm so excited to interview Heather OBrien today because we met a couple weeks ago at our mastermind meeting and she and I hit it off. You are going to love hearing from her. She went from a corporate 9 to 9, not even a 9 to 5, but like an awesome corporate job to flipping 29 houses a month, y'all. You're going to love her story, and I'm super duper excited. She's living in Puerto Rico now and living her best life. You've got to hear this story. I'm so excited. Heather, did I miss anything that you want to add?
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me about the first deal. I'm absolutely obsessed with how you made the jump from regular what we were taught to, hey, I'm gonna be a real estate investor. Tell me about that very first deal that got you started.
Okay, so it was kind of like my first deal was buying my first house, which I'm from California, right? So crazy. I bought a townhouse for $450,000, right? And I lived in it. It was the home, and I had read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, okay, this makes sense. And it was a 3-bedroom. I didn't need a 3-bedroom. I was single. And so I rented out one of the rooms. So I found a roommate and I was like, oh, this is cool. Okay. He said,
no, wait. So like you put this on Airbnb and rented out a room?
No, this was before Airbnb, girl.
Like, oh,
it was on Craigslist. It was on Craigslist.
Okay.
So
you're meeting strangers on Craigslist?
Yeah. So I was like 24, 25. I can't remember exactly how old I was. And so that's like a lot of people in the Bay Area, you know, a lot of people that had jobs would all live together in a house. And so they would get on one lease and all of them would be on, and roommates would kind of move in and out. So I just found a roommate. He was really cool. And then I ended up reading a book called Loopholes of the Rich. And
wait, Loopholes of the Rich.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that was really the Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that, which it was a Rich Dad Poor Dad book at the time. And I decided I was going to quit my job. I had a great corporate job. I worked for a software company called PeopleSoft. It was the #1 company in the country to work for. I loved my job and I was paid very, very well. And so I told my parents, and they're both mechanical aeronautical engineers. My dad had one job his whole life, 38 years, one job, right? And they were like, no, please don't do it. Please don't do it. Just wait a few more years. And I was like, nope, the time is now. I got to do this. It makes sense. The software that I learned was brand new. So I knew it better than anyone, even though I was 24, 25, knew it better than anyone in the world. And I was pretty well known for it. So, so then I quit my job and I put an office in the other bedroom. And I had a girlfriend that I was, so I was like, okay, I'll work from here. But mostly I was working at client sites. I was traveling every week. I was going back and forth on a plane, and it was a lot of travel. So my girlfriend, I was kind of, I guess I would say, lecturing her because she was just making poor financial decisions, right? She was paying too much rent. She was spending beyond her means, right? What a lot of people do. So I'm lecturing her. So she calls me one day and she goes, so you know that room that you have in your house and stuff, you know, I was thinking that I could move in. Or she said, I was thinking I could move in and be your roommate. I was like, well, I just got a roommate. I'm not going to kick him out. That's not right. You know? She's like, no, what you made your office. And I was like, well, it's my office. And she goes, well, actually, Brian and I went over there because we had this friend, Brian, who's this great guy, and he had a key to my house because he would like make sure it was taken care of and stuff when I was traveling. And she's like, and we measured it, and actually you have a very large master bedroom. Your office will fit in there.
So she moved your new office to your bedroom.
Yep. So it was great. It ended up being a win-win because she could save money. That's what I was telling her to do. She was listening, and she didn't have this expensive 1-bedroom apartment. And so she moved in. My office moved into my master bedroom, which I didn't really use the office. I just thought it was cool to have an office, right? And so I was like, oh, this is really nice. So then I ended up taking a client in the Netherlands. So I flew over to the Netherlands and I had my master bedroom that was empty. So my friends are kind of paying attention to what I'm doing and everything. And my friend Andy goes, so you know that master bedroom that you have that you're not living in and you're in the Netherlands? And I was like, yes. He goes, well, I was wondering if I could rent it from you because you're never here. And I was like, sure. Because he was really good friends with Amy, and we're all, you know, like we're all in our 20s, like we're having a good time. So he moved in. And then, so I was in the Netherlands, and then I ended up moving to Scotland for another client job. And I met my husband in a bar in New Orleans, of all places, right? So he was from Ireland. I was living in Scotland, and we met at the bar in New Orleans.
Okay.
I started looking for another client in the States because I wanted to come back to the States, and he had a visa and he was working here. So I found a client in Chicago, and so I came back to Chicago, and he was working in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he's like, this is a really cool town, you know, you should come check it out for the weekend. So I just flew there for the weekend instead of him coming to Chicago. And I was like, this is a really, wait, hold on. Those houses are $100,000. I wonder what they rent for. So I start looking through the newspaper, right? This is how dated it was. And so I'm looking through the newspaper, and then I'm kind of looking online too. And I found a realtor, and I was like, you know, how much, can you show me some houses? So he shows me some houses, and I'm like, okay, so we can buy this house for $100,000 and it's gonna rent for $1,100. Way better than a $450,000 house that I ended up being able to rent for $2,200. So, you know, I like math, pretty easy math, right? And so I ended up,
Get it, turn it off. Turn the speaker off on the side, please. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. So I ended up looking at some houses, and I found a property management company, and I bought 2 houses. And I paid like 110, 120.
In Charlotte.
In Charlotte, North Carolina. Yep. And I was like, okay, you know, so I got financing because I had, it was actually pretty hard because I was self-employed, and I had not been self-employed for 2 years at that point. So, but I was able to get it because I think my husband must have been on it. So he was from Ireland, so he had no credit, and no credit is actually worse than bad credit. So what I did, there's this little trick that, that my friend taught me, just put him on your bank accounts. And then he'll have the 16 years, because I'd had a bank account size 14. So I put him on my bank account. And so he all of a sudden had 12 years of credit history because he was on that bank account. And so then my parents had a credit card that they had had for like 16 years. And I was like, Mom, can you please put my husband on your credit card so that he gets credit history? I promise we're not going to use it. And my mom's like, yeah, sure, that makes sense. So, so he ended up getting good credit, and he had a job, right? So I think that's how we ended up getting it. I'm not sure, but so we got 2 loans, and I was like, this is nice. So then we're in Chicago, and I went to the local RIA because.
Well, hold on, time out. You've dumped a ton of good stuff on me already. I want to take it back and clarify a couple things, okay?
Okay.
So you're living in California, but you've got this job. You read this book, and then you quit your job.
Yep.
How, I mean, you read the book and then like a year later you quit your job, or?
5 days.
This is a really nice book.
It's a game changer. Loopholes
Okay.
of the rich.
Loopholes of the Rich. You read the book, and 5 days later you quit your job. No wonder your parents are freaking out. I'm kind of freaking out at this point.
Well,
Okay.
it just makes sense. So it made sense to me because I was very well known, right? Like I worked for the company, and everybody wanted me on their projects. So I was like, huh, this is interesting. And so I quit in 5 days, but I gave 5 months notice because I wanted to bring them live, right? Because that was the right thing to do. It was a software, we needed to bring our client live. But I put my resume out, and I got 80 something phone calls. My voicemail filled. I got 80 phone calls. I got voicemails. I got emails, all this stuff. And I was like, I needed to take it down because I wasn't actually looking for a client for 5 months, right?
So you decided you were going to work for that company for 5 more months. But in the meantime, you're basically creating your own company and shopping your resume to find new clients so that you stepped into a better position.
Oh, yeah.
Because you were running your own show, and now you're working for the clients, probably making as much or more money.
Oh, I was making 4 times as much money. And I got to choose where I went, right? Because I was working in Phoenix, Arizona, which I love Phoenix. It's like most of the year, the weather's great. The summer, not so much, right? But so I was actually there, and I told my client, because I lived in Singapore. My best friend and I lived in Singapore for a year. And it was amazing. And I hadn't really traveled much as a kid. Like we didn't have any money. So like we went camping, and that was great. But once I experienced culture, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I love Asian food. So Singapore was like the place to be, right? And so I told my boss, like, I want to travel internationally again. He's like, no, you need to stay in the West. Corporate rules, right? I don't really like rules too much. I mean, I understand them and I follow them for the most part. But I was like, but there's jobs elsewhere. And I want to, nope, but you're in the West, people over there. And I was like, okay, well then I'm going to quit. So I actually had a conversation with my boss and he said, nope, we got to follow corporate policy. And I said, okay, here's my notice. I'm not going to screw you guys. I'll bring you guys live in January. So they went live in January. And then I actually went down to Costa Rica for 3 weeks because I wanted to go there and it looked amazing. And I got an email when I was in Costa Rica, and it was from the VP of the company that I worked for saying, hey, Heather, I don't know if you remember me, but we have this job in the Netherlands that we were, they paid me 4 times as much money as I was making in salary, 4 times as much, all my expenses, my travel, everything. And I was like, you guys, that was such a poor decision because I would have stayed because I wanted to go international, right? They could have kept me. I mean, I eventually would have left because I think it's just in my blood, but yeah.
So that's a lesson just all in itself, sticking up for yourself and taking a leap of faith. And they called you 3 weeks later and offered you 4 times as much money for exactly what you wanted in the beginning.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, girl, go get it. Okay, so that's how we end up in the Netherlands, and that's how you're in your 20s and you're traveling around, and so you got this big, nice, empty house in California that your friends are basically making the mortgage payment for you, which,
Absolutely.
I mean, people could do that right now anyway. If they've got a house, they can start renting out bedrooms and
Now
have
they
somebody
can do
else.
it on Airbnb.
It's so much easier.
Yeah, like so my girlfriend, she does it, and because she's a woman, she only rents to women. So you can actually say, sorry, I don't feel comfortable with some random man in my house.
If you live there, and that's the same, I think up to 4 units. If you have a quadplex and you live in one, you can determine who the other 3 tenants are.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I'm pretty sure it goes to quad. Now, after you get into 5 units, you're commercial, but as long as you are a resident
that makes sense.
in the quadplex, you can say who the other 3 people are. But if you don't live there, then you can't say, right?
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I have 5 Airbnbs also. So, but we'll get to that.
Now we'll get to that. Okay, so that's how you end up in the Netherlands, and you're hopping around and working for these clients and picking up all sorts of jobs just all over the world.
Yep.
And end up back in Chicago.
I ended up going to Chicago. Yep. I wasn't from Chicago. I didn't do well in Chicago. Those winters just like broke me.
But you had a client there, so you were working there.
Yep. HSBC Bank. Yep.
But your man was living in Charlotte, so that's how we picked up those houses over there.
Well, he was working in Charlotte during the week, and then he would fly back to Chicago for the weekend, or I would fly to Charlotte, or sometimes we'd fly down to Florida, or we'd fly to New Orleans, or wherever.
My husband and I have been doing that for 8 years because he lives in Georgia. Now he works in Florida, but I've always lived in Tennessee. So we would either meet at one of our places or we'd say, hey, let's go to Boston this weekend.
It's so fun.
It's so much fun. And people don't get it. They're like, you don't live with your husband? I'm like, no, I see him on the weekends.
Well, I mean, I live with my husband, but even still now, because we have hotels and I'll get to that. But, like we support each other. And if sometimes we're together, like right now with this, COVID thing going on, we're together, but we weren't. And he flew here because we had to close one of our hotels,
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So these first houses that you got in Charlotte though.
Yep.
Just got a regular mortgage, got your husband on it because he had a good job.
Yep.
You didn't have 2 years of magic, which what is with 2 years? Like if you can survive 2 years, they'll give you a loan.
I had so much cash in the bank because I started making all this money, right? And they're like, we don't care. I had a good credit score. They didn't care. I wasn't. So it's important. And my friend told me that actually in the beginning, if you're going to start your company, don't wait. Even if you may still have a job, you might start it now, because I waited till January. To save $75, right? This is seriously my mindset. If I would have started in December, a whole 11 months earlier, because I would have had 2 years of tax return. So technically I only would have needed to be in business for 13 months.
What was that $75?
Tax return. Like the license in California or something,
Just a filing fee?
Well, and I just didn't know. You only know what you know, right? So if you're going to be self-employed, start your company now, get those tax returns done so you have 2 years. There's no ways to get money, obviously.
Even if you make 5 or 10 grand.
Yep.
Start it now so that your track record starts right now instead of when you're making 100 grand a year.
Yep.
That's great advice right there. Okay.
And you get, not that I'm a CPA or attorney, but with a company, you get tax deductions.
That's right. And lots of things that people buy on a regular basis can be a great tax reduction.
Like your cell phone bill that you use for your business, like your internet that you use for your business.
Yep. All sorts of stuff. But yeah, that's a totally different conversation. Okay, so you're living in Chicago. You've got these 2 houses in Charlotte, and you were just there for a little bit, but you bought them and you started renting them because it was a better return than what you're getting in California, right?
Way better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's still the case.
Yep.
Okay,
Probably
awesome.
forever.
So now we're in Chicago, living in Chicago, and we got the 2 houses in Charlotte. We still got the place in California. What happens in Chicago?
So I go to the local RIA club to
Okay.
meet other investors and just learn, you know, because I love learning. And so I go there and I meet this guy. And he tells me, oh, well, I can sell you 2 houses for 80 grand and they'll rent for $650 each. And I was like, what?
That's
Like,
better than Charlotte.
That's better than California. That's better than Charlotte. I like it, right? So I'm like, okay, well, you know, send me the number, send me the deal, blah, 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 whatever, right? So he sends it to me. And so I say, sweet, let's close. When do you want to close? Like, because they needed to be renovated. He said, I need to renovate them. They, you know, they're probably worth like 30 each. I'm gonna put 10 grand into them, and then, you know, and then I'll rent them for you. The renovation will probably take like 30 days. I'm like, okay. So being the very trusting individual that I was, I gave him $80,000.
Just gave him 80 grand
No,
and
I
said,
mean, I closed on the houses. You know, I mean,
Okay.
I wasn't totally stupid.
okay.
I closed on the houses, but I paid him 80 grand rather than, you know, he said they were worth 30, which they were. They appraised for that. And then they were 20 grand in renovations. So I paid 80 grand, and then the guy like ghosts me. Gone.
Oh,
Gone,
no.
gone, right? But I do have title of the houses. And
Okay.
I'm working for the bank. I worked Monday through Thursday. I didn't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so I tell my husband, who now at this point, he is not working anymore. So he had quit his job and he was taking on clients too. Cause you know, I told him, read this book. It's really amazing. And he read the book, he quit his job. And so he was like, just kind of in between clients, cause he did cell phone like towers. So he's like, I'm like, well, I just gave him $80,000. Like, it's an hour and a half from where we lived in Arlington Heights, which is like a suburb of Chicago. I was like, you go drive there and you find him and you go get him to do this. And he's like, because I'm, you know, my mom's from New Jersey. So I guess that's where I get my like, no, just go do it. Well, he's from Ireland, right? And he's not exactly like this, you know.
Aggressive.
So I was like, no, this is what you go do. And he was like, okay. So he goes there and he comes back at the end of the day. And I was like, so how was your day? And he's like, so, you know, I met him and he showed me the houses and, you know, they look good and whatever. He's like, so what, you know, he says he's going to go to Home Depot tomorrow and get the stuff. So, you know, he'll go tomorrow. And I'm like, no, you're both going tomorrow. And he goes, you want me to go back? I'm like, do you really trust this guy that he's going to do what he says he's going to do? He's proven over and over he's not, right? And because it'd been 30 days probably since I was kind of patiently waiting. And so he goes, okay. So he drives there the next day and he comes back. He goes, okay, well, we didn't go to Home Depot, but what we did is we walked through the properties. We made a list so that we know what we need to get at Home Depot, whatever. He's like, I think I could do this. And I was like, okay. You know, so then I was like, so you're going back tomorrow? He's like, I guess. I mean, you're telling me that's what I'm doing, right? And I was like, yeah. And so he goes back and then he comes back again and he goes, you know, I think I could do this. So the guy I think he didn't show up the third day or something, right? And he goes, well, I think I can do this. And I said, okay, we'll go back tomorrow. So he goes back tomorrow and I think it's like a Thursday now. And he goes through again and he goes, okay, I think I can do this. He's like, but I said, listen, I'm tired of hearing you say, I think I can do this. We're doing this. I'm going with you tomorrow. You tell me it's going to cost about 15 grand and you found we can find a contractor because you've met a couple contractors going in and out of the houses. And like, there was a lot of real estate going on at the time. It's probably like 2004-5 timeframe. So, but I'm not good with times. Don't quote me on that one, right?
It's okay. We won't check your records. It's okay.
Yeah. So then we go on Friday, he walks me through it and I'm a very systems girl. So I'm like, okay, this is what we need. Checklist. So then we go back on Saturday. So we go buy all this stuff because I'm like, I'd rather invest 15 grand and get it done than just not invest the 15 grand and have the houses sit and I have nothing. Right. So we bought all this stuff and I started just documenting everything. And then we went Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we did all this. And then on Monday, he went back and he started doing it. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, and so then he would explain to me things. And at night, I would just kind of like take notes on everything that he would tell me and everything I was learning. And then on Friday, I would go back and we'd do it. And so we fixed those houses, we rented them out, and he just kind of started driving around and, looking for houses. And he's like, I see this one and there's this guy here and I can talk to this. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So we would drive up and down the streets. We kind of get to know the neighborhood and everything. And then I would just document everything. So we did those 2 houses. Then we bought for cash. And then I think we refinanced them after they were fixed up. And basically I just documented everything. What does it take to do a kitchen? What does it take to do a bedroom? What does it take for a roof? What does it take, and I created all the analysis on, this is how much we're going to spend. This is how much it's appraised for. This is how much the rent is. And I created a whole package and decided, I had a lot of friends that had a lot of money because we were in Silicon Valley and we were working, making good money. And so I started saying like, hey, do you guys want these houses? Like I've rented these, I paid $40,000. I can actually, now I found out I could get them for like 20 and then fix them up, right? And sell them to my friends for between 30 and 60 because there were some nicer ones, and the rentals were between $500 and $1,000. Good math. And so we ended up raising money. We ended up buying more houses, selling houses, and we were doing, within 6 months, we did 29. That was within 6 months, we were doing 29 properties a month.
29 properties a month?
Yes. Because once you do one, this girl, right? Like you do one and you're like, oh, that wasn't as scary as I thought. That was actually pretty easy, right? Like, and then you do the second one, you're like, well, but that was pretty much the same as the first one. 95 to 99% exactly the same. And then you do the third one, you're like, well, that was the same. And it's just like the first time you ride a bike, it's like, it's hard. And then you get it, and then you get it. And even if you haven't ridden a bike for 20 years, you get back on that bike and you know how to ride it.
It's perfect. It's a perfect analogy. And the way your brain works just blows my mind. So you're saying you just created these systems just out of thin air. You're doing this process. You're working your full-time job. You're working this job on the weekends. You got money pouring in from California so that you can keep doing jobs.
Yep.
I mean, you're like Superwoman.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I was young and I had a lot of energy, and it just made sense, Yeah. Like to me, I'm not a very, I don't base my decisions on emotion. I base them on the numbers. Because I used to say, because I did actually base some on emotion. I'm not saying that I haven't done that. And I've made mistakes, right? Like that beautiful house that you're like, oh, look how cute that is. It's so beautiful. And you pay more for it. And then you're like, that beautiful house looks pretty ugly when it's sitting vacant for 120 days because it wasn't in the right neighborhood and it was the best house on the block. And you know how it works.
Yep. So you got 29 houses going at the same time and you learned some things, you made some mistakes. What happened that you stopped that process?
Well, we didn't exactly stop. We ended up finding a partner who was a contractor, and so he was helping us organize all the rehabs and everything. And I don't exactly know what happened because I was only there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and he was kind of there Monday through Friday. But he just kind of started slacking, and my husband was picking up a lot of the slack. And so we had a partnership agreement, and in that partnership agreement, we had something that's called a shotgun agreement. Now, I don't know if that's the legal term or if that's the slang, but basically what it is if I make you an offer, Whitney, if you and I are partners, right? And let's say I make you an offer to buy you out for $1 million. You can either accept that or you can make me the same offer. So it ensures that one party brings a fair offer to the table because I have to, accept if you turn me down and say, nope, I'm buying you out. So we did that because it just he wasn't pulling his weight. And we were really, I'm a hard worker and so is my husband. And so we were working hard and he just was like, sweet, this is kind of a free ride. And I don't know if that was his mindset. I don't think he was a bad person, but he just wasn't as ambitious as us. And very few people are. So I'm not faulting him for it.
And, you know, when you get into a relationship or a partnership, everything's amazing until 6 months, 6 years down the line. That's why it's so important to have these partnership agreements so that everybody understands if somebody starts slacking or somebody gets a new girlfriend or boyfriend, like when everything is rosy, we make these decisions because everything ain't always going to be rosy.
Yep. So you make the agreement, which makes it fair when you get along. So it was a fair thing to do that. And it's not that we didn't really get along. We ended up not getting along. I'll get into that story. But so basically we offered him 2.7 million to for the company to buy him out. And he came back and said, no, I'm going to buy you out.
Okay.
And we said, okay. So we probably had like, I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say anywhere from 50 to 60 properties that were like on our books, right? That were being rehabbed, under contract, etc. And so we said, okay, I guess we're going to accept it because that's what we have to do. And so this was, I don't know what month it was, but I believe it was 2007. So right at the peak, right? And so he, and by the way, all those houses that we had on our books, we had a wait list of people waiting to buy them. Okay. So it was easy, and he would have come up with a 2.7 million by just selling all those houses. It would have been grand. So he ends up, we sign all the paperwork, and it wasn't a cash deal. And we're like, okay, that's fine. You know, you just have to sell the properties. We have the wait list. It's super easy because like I'm organized. My husband was pretty organized, and we've been doing it. So why can't he do it? It's teed up for him, right? Well, he ends up not doing it, not making payments. So we talked to some lawyers, and I've never done this before, and I will never do it again. But we ended up spending $500,000 on legal fees, like fancy Chicago lawyers. And because I was like, you know what? I'll spend $500,000 to get 2.7. And they told us that, you know, yeah, you're going to win. There's no doubt. So we did win. We went to court, and he like just lied under like just a bunch of stuff that the judge basically said, listen, like you're a liar and you lose and you need to pay them and you need to, but this was like probably a 6-month period in the middle of winter in Chicago. So what happens in winter in Chicago? If any of you know what, you know, most of the country this happens in, right?
It's cold.
Electricity goes off because it's not being paid, but the water's still on. And pipes freeze, and then they burst.
No.
And then they're everywhere, and houses flood, and then you have mold, and then you have frozen. I mean, it was bad, right? He ended up, I think, closing on 2 of the properties.
Oh no.
Pushing. So, yep. And then 2008 happened. We kind of all remember that if we're old enough. And so, yeah, I think, you know, we lost about 3.2 million. And,
oh no.
But in that, it was an amazing learning experience. And, you know, now we've got some pretty heavy stuff going on right now in the world. And like, I'm just not worried. Like, I will tell you, back then in 2008, 2009, I was losing sleep. I was stressed. I was upset. And you know what? We can only control what we can control. And what we can control are our thoughts and our actions.
That's right.
So I'm sleeping well, you know, what are we going to do? I mean, we're on curfew here, 7 p.m. till 5 a.m.
That's crazy.
So, I mean, but it feels pretty normal to me. I work from home.
Yeah.
Well, I can't go out to dinner, and I miss that because I love food and I love socializing and just people watching. But you know what? I'm grateful. I have a roof over my head, and we have hotels now. Like, I haven't even gotten to that, but we have 5 hotels in Puerto Rico.
So how did you get from Chicago to Puerto Rico?
Okay. So I actually went from Chicago to California. And then I created a software during this whole craziness because I had a software background, right? And it was really hard to manage 29 properties and everything. And I was also traveling to London and New York and Buffalo and another very cold place. And so I was kind of bouncing around too. And in London, I remember I would finish my day and it's like 2 a.m. my time because I'm trying to like manage the guys. And I'm like, okay, we have this closing on Thursday and the roof is not done. They're like, yeah, it's Tuesday, you know, they're like, yeah, the roof's done. You just don't have the most recent pictures. So this was before Google Drive, before Dropbox, before any of that. So they're like, let me email them to you. because I'm selling to people that I know, and even if I didn't know them, I still have integrity. So I'm like waiting, and then they're uploading the pictures, and then they're emailing it to me, and then I have to download the pictures. It's like, oh my God, there's got to be a better way. So I basically then, on the plane and traveling and at night, I created a software to manage properties and rehabs and all that. And so then that ended up becoming what now is Real Estate Worldwide. So Kent Clothier and I founded Real Estate Worldwide, Find Cash Buyers Now, Find Private Lenders Now, Find Motivated Sellers Now, Find Comps Now, all that stuff, because we were solving a problem for us. And then it was so ugly. I can't even tell you how ugly this software was. And so my mentor, people, they kind of knew what we were doing, and they were like, can I use that software? How do you manage this? They didn't even know that there was software. They're like, how do you manage this? Like spreadsheets or a workbook and I was like, no, I created a software because it was so hard to manage. And like, I like being efficient with my time. And they were like, oh, can I use it? And I'm like, no, it's ugly. There's no security. It works for me. Like my whole team could see everything. They knew how much money I was making, how much I was paying, everything. And my mentor was like, Heather, why don't you stop saying no, say yes, and charge them? And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Sometimes it takes that outside mentor perspective to shine a light on the whole situation. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and also just listening, right? Like how many times do people come to you for advice, Whitney? Because you're very experienced. You're like, I love how you just like, we were in this mastermind. We were at a training, like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, I don't know how long now. And they made a suggestion next week. So the suggestion was to go to improv and take an improv class. I see Whitney posting on Facebook that like Monday night, like we left on Thursday, Monday night, the girls at improv. Like you gotta listen to people, like you gotta listen to the right people. If your mom has never bought real estate before, don't be listening to your mom, right? But if somebody's bought real estate, they've been successful, they have high integrity, you look up to them, trust your gut. Us as women, we've got that thing. Like it might be in your heart, it might be in your gut, it might be in your head, like it's all somewhere else. But we have that woman's intuition, and just trust it. And the older I get, the more I trust it.
Yeah, for sure.
But you got to listen. You got to surround yourself by the right people. And that's why I told Whitney when I met her, I was like, okay, just so you know, like I'm clinging on to you because you're awesome. Like finding a girl entrepreneur, real estate, just great attitude, fun, smart, like trustworthy. I can call her and be like, I got this idea, Whitney. Do you have a sec? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, what do you think about this? She's like, oh, that's awesome. But also do this. And I'm like, yes, great, thank you, love you, bye.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you so much. And I am honored that I am that person that you call, that I can say, yeah, totally do that. And this, that, and the other, add to it.
It's so important who you surround yourself with. There are, seriously, if you get a bunch of women together and they're supporting each other, there is nothing it's like giving me goosebumps. There's nothing stopping us.
It's the best feeling in the world. We have that in First Build and Fast too. And Heather's actually teaching FTDF Live next week. So you'll get to hang out with 20 of our ladies next week. I'm so excited about it. Well, I guess next week as we record it, it'll be in the past as this comes out. It'll be April's recordings. But
I missed it, but you can still watch the recording.
Yeah, the recordings are still available. And we're going to do another FTDF Live coming up in August. She Buys It Live in November. There's tons of stuff to do. But anyway, okay, let's go back to you problem solving and creating this software. And so you got the software, you started selling it to your clients.
Yep. So we started selling it, and we started, traveling and speaking on stages, going to RIAs, going to events and stuff like that. And then we were like, oh God, this is draining. Because if you know how it is, right? Like if you go speak for a weekend and you do an event Friday, Saturday, Sunday, not like you get Monday off. We had people in our office, we had stuff. So it was like, oh my, and so I wasn't as young as I was in my 20s, right? And I'm like, I just want to enjoy my time. And so I did this exercise. So there's a few things that changed my life, like really impactful. Reading Loopholes of the Rich that I already told you about. And the second thing that was very, very impactful was writing down my perfect day. So I don't remember who told me to do it, how I decided to do it, but my business partner and I decided that we were going to do that so we could support each other in providing that for each other, right? Like helping bring each other up. And so I wrote down my perfect day, like very, very detailed, right? Like I wake up, I'm next to the man. And by the way, after this whole legal thing in 2008 and everything, I went through a divorce. That husband who is a great man. It was too much for us, right? And so we're very happy now, and we're both remarried, and we both have children, and it's great. But it was just too much for us. It's very stressful, as you guys know.
Yeah.
So we didn't survive, and so
not together anyway.
We didn't survive together. Yes.
Right.
But we both would be. Oh, I hope he wishes me well. I wish him well.
I'm sure he does.
And I have a 21-year-old stepson who is like the coolest kid in the entire world. I mean, my kids are super cool too, but they're 2.5. So like, you can't, it's not apples to apples, but he's just such a great kid. Like,
yeah.
I'm just honored to still have a relationship with him. So, so I wrote down my perfect day. Now, I had just been through a very not so easy divorce in a time that we lost $3.2 million. And the economy was tough. We started the real estate worldwide. And so I wrote down my perfect day, which seemed so far-fetched, right? Like I had to move back in with my parents because we couldn't live together. So I let him stay in the house because my parents lived close and his parents were in Ireland. So I'm like, you know what? I love my parents. I could still to this day live with my parents. I love my parents. So I moved back in with my parents and everything. And so I wrote down my perfect day, like that I woke up at the beach, that I could hear the ocean, that I could smell the ocean, that there were the white curtains, that I, rolled over and it was like the most amazing man in the world. And that my children ran into the room and they, and then we had breakfast together as a family overlooking the water, and that I did yoga, and like, it was detailed. Like it was probably 4 pages, right? That
I have chills.
Yeah. Like that I had lunch with people that I love, like you, that like we're bouncing business ideas off each other, that I have an amazing team working virtually that I love. It's like, so I decided that I was going to move from Silicon Valley to Southern California because in my perfect day, I surfed. I didn't know how to surf. So I wanted to learn how to surf. So I bought a wetsuit, I bought a surfboard, and I started learning how to surf. And I ended up hiring my assistant, and I just fell in love with her. She was amazing. So I hired an assistant, and she knew how to surf. And I was like, can you teach me how to surf? So we would surf every morning before we went to the office. It was awesome. And, I still work with her to this day. And this was like a good 12 years ago, right? She's amazing. If you ever need event help, she's your girl. So, so we learned how to surf. And then like in the mornings, I'm very cold. I always get cold. And so I'm putting on a wetsuit and I take off wetsuit and I'm freezing cold. And it's like June and I have booties on because the water's freezing. And I was like, one day I'm like, wait, my perfect day doesn't have a wetsuit involved in it. I'm surfing in a bikini. You know what? I really liked Costa Rica when I went there before. Why don't I live in Costa Rica? All I need is internet. I'm going to move to Costa Rica. Now, mind you, my business partner was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, it doesn't matter. You're in Florida anyway. Actually, it's closer because the flight from Costa Rica to Florida is 2.5 hours rather than 5 hours from California. And he just kind of rolled his eyes and laughed. And I said, look, it's my perfect day. It's, we wrote it down. And he was like, whatever, as long as you have internet. He tends to roll his eyes at me a lot, right? Because I just don't do it. And so I moved down to Costa Rica. And for about 2.5 years, and I learned how to surf. I got to surf in a bikini, didn't have to put on a wetsuit. And then I looked at the ocean, I smelled the ocean, I heard it, but I was lacking intellectual stimulus. And that's part of my perfect day. So I lived in this great town. It had a little dirt road and great food, and there were great people there. But I can only talk about surfing and travel and food so much. And people would come on vacation and I'm like, oh my God, you're awesome. And we'd have these great conversations. They're like, yeah, we're leaving tomorrow or we're leaving in 2 days. And I was like, so I ended up moving to LA, and because I needed intellectual stimulus, I wanted to be near the beach. And I was like, okay, I guess I can put on a wetsuit, but I was still kind of looking for that place. And then I met a guy in Puerto Rico, and we were talking about, and he was an entrepreneur as well. And so we started talking about tax strategy, because it is about how much you make, but the secret is how much you keep, not how much you make, right? So, would you rather make $100,000 and keep 60,000, or would you rather make 90,000 and keep 85?
I'll take option 2, please.
Yes, thank you. Me too. So I'm talking on the phone, and my mom, by the way, who questioned me before, is now my bookkeeper. She does all my books. She pays my bills. She knows everything about me, right? Like if I have to surprise her with anything, I have to call my sister and be like, can I use your credit card? Because I can't buy it. Mom's going to want to know what it is, and she needs to classify it and put it in the right QuickBooks category, So, because I do QuickBooks on my personal too. Like I have a profit and a lot and a balance sheet, everything personal companies. So so my mom's working for me, and I'm on the phone with this guy, and he's like, yeah, and I'm like, wait, 4% taxes? What do you mean 0% interest income and dividends and capital gains? For what? And my mom looks at me, she goes, who are you talking to? I'm like, this guy down in Puerto Rico. And she goes, oh no. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go look at tickets, and I'll call you back. Right. So my mom's just like, what was that? And I'm like, Mom, seriously, because California, we pay high income tax. Right. And I tried Texas, and it wasn't for me. I tried Florida. It wasn't for me. And so I booked a ticket. I went down to Puerto Rico for 10 days, and I fell in love. Like, it was amazing. Like, the beach is never less than 80 degrees. The food is amazing. It's like a cross between Costa Rica, which I love because we've got the rainforest and the mountains and these like amazing trails. Then we have the beaches, which are Caribbean, even better than Pacific beaches on the Costa Rican side. Crystal clear blue, never less than 80 degrees. We have Old San Juan, which is like Spain. We have so it's like South Beach, if you guys ever been to South Beach, Costa Rica, and Spain, all put together in one island. Amazing. And there's intellectual stimulus, tons of smart people, tons of good people. They like to have fun. They like to eat. They like to dance. My kind of place. And so after 10 days, I think at like day 3, I was like, okay, I'm moving. Like, where do I want to live? And so I went back and to LA. I packed up all my stuff. I drove my Pathfinder up to my parents' house. And I said, I'm moving to Puerto Rico, and I'm going to sell my car. And my mom was like, what? And I moved to Puerto Rico, and that was 6.5 years ago. And so I still, at that point, I was still working on Real Estate Worldwide. I was still, I have a lot of buy and hold properties that I picked up through the years. And then we go back to my perfect day, which the reason why I like my perfect day is because I'm very ambitious, and a lot of opportunities come to me. And so I was saying yes to everything, and I was just being overloaded, right? And so with my perfect day, it was so easy to say no, because it's like, here's my perfect day, here's where I am. Does it get me closer or further away from my perfect day? If it gets me closer, I will work my butt off for it. If it gets me further away, it's easy to say no to. So I was here, and I would get up in the morning. I would either go surfing or paddleboarding, do yoga, go swimming in the ocean, because I woke up, I overlooked the ocean, I could hear the beach, everything was amazing. And then I would get in front of my office, overlooking the water, and start working at like 7:30 in the morning. I'm a morning person. And so when my partner would come in at like 10 a.m. his time, because that was his perfect day, right? Take his kids to school, wake up in the morning. He now lived in San Diego, beach.
Y'all switched.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, but then you get in at 10 a.m. at 2, I'm about ready to be done. And so we just had a conversation, and I was like, so, that perfect day exercise, and, I think that I can replace myself, and I'm going to go do my own thing. And I had no idea what I was going to do, right? But that's the great thing about real estate. When you have buy and hold real estate, and I own a lot of them free and clear, like I can figure it out, right? And so
because you got that monthly cash flow, you don't have to go job to job. You can take 6 months off or 3 weeks off or whatever, or you could start another new company. How many companies did you have at this point?
I think I had like 17. It was so complicated.
17. Oh my God, I've got 9. How do you keep up with 17?
I'd have to count how many it was, but I had some in California because I had that software company that consulting company I initially started. Then we had cash buyers, private lenders, motivated sellers. I had the flipping company. I had my buy and hold companies. I bought some properties in Louisiana, North Carolina, Illinois, Indiana. So like I had all these companies, and then I had my company. It was it was complicated. Now I've totally simplified, because that's part of my perfect day and something I've learned to do. And so here I am. And now now in Puerto Rico, I actually met my husband. I walked into, I was a guest at one of his hotels, and I walked in, and I was like, and now mind you, this is overlooking the ocean. It's beautiful. My girlfriend had unfortunately lost her fiance. They were on vacation together, and he passed, and it was horrible. And so I'd lost my best friend when I was 24. So, I didn't know what it was like to lose a partner, but I knew it sucks.
Yeah.
And so I got on a plane because I was in Puerto Rico and I flew to San Francisco and I was like, I'm here. You need me or not, I'm here. You call me at 2 a.m. It doesn't matter. I will drive over here. I'm here for you. But if you don't call me, that's okay too. I know that you might need your space. So a few months later, it was her birthday and she's like, can we go, can I come visit you? And can we go do the brightest bioluminescent bay in the world? Because in Vieques, we have the brightest bioluminescent bay in the world. One of the most magical things you will ever do in your life, guaranteed.
Is that where you like paddleboard or something out and you can wave your hand through the water and it glows?
Yep, you go in kayaks and they have clear kayaks that you can see the fish swimming underneath you. It's like pixie dust. You can like put your hand in it or you put it on your skin and it's like pixie dust all over you. It's amazing.
Okay, so that's what she wants to do. So y'all go back to Puerto Rico.
So she comes to visit. We fly over to this island called Vieques and we walk in and there's this guy sitting, you know, at the restaurant. And I go, I don't know who that man is, but I want to know who he is. I have no idea why, right? I just like
it's that gut feeling.
He just like was sitting back and he was looking. And so my girlfriend and I are sitting there and we order breakfast and he says something like, hey, you know, this view doesn't suck, or I don't know what he said. He said something, you know. And so my girlfriend starts talking to him and he goes, where are you guys from? She goes, well, I'm from San Francisco. Well, I'm actually from Russia, but I live in San Francisco and we went to college together and I'm here visiting her. She lives in San Juan. And he looks at me, he goes, you live in San Juan? I go, yeah. He goes, you don't look like you live in San Juan. And I look at him and I go, what do people look like, you know, that live in San Juan? You don't look like, where do you live? And he goes, San Juan. I go, well, you don't look like you live in San Juan. You know, like, because San Juan's just this like amazing area. There's beautiful people here, just all different types of people from everywhere. And so yeah, and then we just ended up talking and he is just the kindest, most amazing man in the entire world. And I fell in love with him. And then now we have 2.5-year-old little baby twins. We have a little girl and boy, and we're just so fortunate. And
now you have your perfect day.
I do.
That is so awesome. Okay, so like you walked into his hotel. So is that how you got into the hotels in Puerto Rico?
Yeah. So I started just like, you know me, like I just want to get to know people and I love learning new stuff. So I'm like asking things and I'm, you know, and he's like telling me stuff. And that's how I actually got into Airbnb, because we had like 4 houses here. But we had a house and we had another apartment and then another apartment. And so I was like, we should Airbnb this. So I was like, I've been on Airbnb for 5.5 years. And because we could rent the place out for like, you know, 500 to 1,000, depending, as we had studios and 2 bedrooms, and we make anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 a month on them. So, so we did the Airbnbs, and then I bought a note from the bank, and then we bought another one from the bank that we could then renovate. And so yeah, we have 2 projects that are not done. And then that are hotels. We have another project that's not totally done either, but right now we're shut down because tourism, you know, has kind of come to a halt. So when this all goes over, you guys need to come down to Puerto Rico. You need to come visit me. I'd love to show you around Puerto Rico Boutique Hotels. I'm going to give a shout out there. I hope that's okay.
Oh yeah, totally. Puerto Rico Boutique Hotels.
Hotels.com. Yep.
I love it.
We have one of the top restaurants in San Juan too. We have this like French Puerto Rican fusion. It's amazing. But like, if I eat there too much, I'll gain like a good 7 pounds in like 2 weeks, you know?
Oh my God, that sounds awesome. So your whole story is just so incredible because you are the definition of get started and figure out where it goes and keep going and figure out where you end up. I mean, you've been all over the world doing all sorts of deals. Now you've got tons of free and clear houses. You're buying hotels. You're buying notes from the bank. I mean, you're doing it all, but living your perfect day with your amazing husband and your beautiful kids. Like, everybody can have their perfect, amazing life. You just got to keep going and go through some ups and downs and make some mistakes, learn from those lessons. But
my
keep
mentor
going.
told me that one time too. She's like, you know, the best lesson to learn, Heather? And I'm like, what is it? She goes, learn from somebody else's mistakes and don't make them. And I was like, oh, now sometimes you got to make them yourself, right? You do. But there are people that have figured this out. So like, there is a way to fast track it.
Yep.
And you're one of those ladies, and it's awesome because you do share. You're a wealth of knowledge, and you share it, right? A lot of people keep it all closed in, and you're like, no, I'm going to tell you how to do it because you want everybody to have a better life.
I want everybody to win.
The raised tide.
The tide rises all ships.
Thank you. The tide rises all ships. I knew it was something like that.
When I win, you win. When the ladies in First Little and Fast get more deals done, then everybody has the ability to get more deals done. When you make money, I can make money. I want everybody to make money. I want everybody to live their perfect day. And now I have to go do that. I have to read the Loopholes of the Rich. And I'm going to Puerto Rico boutiquehotels.com to get a place to come down over Thanksgiving and check out this island life.
We already looked at the moon. The moon's going to be perfect because when you do Vieques for the Bio Bay, you want the moon really small or set because it's darker and you can see. So I've been to 74 countries in the world, by the way, territories in the world. So like Scotland and the UK, technically both, England, technically UK, but I count it as two. And I have never seen so many stars in my life. And I've been to the observatory in Hawaii, like the big island that has tons of stars too because it's in the middle of the Pacific. Vieques has the most stars I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait to come visit.
I know, me too.
Okay. For anybody listening that's trying to get started, they're trying to take that first leap of faith, they're trying to make something happen in real estate, what would you tell them?
You just got to do it. Like, I know it's scary. Like, thinking back to when I bought my first house, it was scary. Like, I remember I wrote a check for like $120,000. Like, that's a lot of money, right? And I had to borrow some of it from my parents because I didn't have that much saved. And then my second one, I was like, oh, that was less scary. And that was kind of the same. And then my third one, it's just like, you just got to do it. It's never as bad as you think. If worst case scenario never happens. It really rarely, because what's worst case scenario? You die, right? Now that's eventually going to happen. But it never happens. And usually it happens way better than you ever imagined.
Yep.
Like, ever. You just got to do it.
I think when you take that step of faith, then God meets you on Faith Avenue and he'll fill in the blanks that you don't know. And you don't even know what questions to ask until you get started and you get more than halfway through with it. And you're like, oh, I used to worry about this and that never even happened.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. And then once you have, like, me, I'm a systems girl, right? So like once you do it, you're like, okay, that was a system. Wrote down, I need to do A, B, C, D, and E. I got to do an appraisal. I got to do an inspection. I got to do, whatever it is that you have to do, because in some cases you don't necessarily do that. But what are the things that you need to do? You need to make sure you have a clear title. There's things that always need to happen, and you just check. I'm good.
Yep. Oh, that's so perfect. Well, if anybody wants to get in touch with you now and figure out the systems that you have placed in now, what you got going on and how can people find you?
They can go to lifestyleworkweek.com. That's my company, and I help people do all sorts of marketing operations behind the scenes to create their perfect day.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for being here, Heather. You were fantastic. I knew this was going to be awesome, and there's so many just golden nuggets through here. I don't even know how to summarize them all, but y'all listen to this again, and while you're here, I have a free gift for you. Go to getyourfirstdeal.com, getyourfirstdeal.com, and I'll send you a gift to your inbox. Y'all, I want to help you get this first deal done fast. Don't forget to subscribe to She Buys It Podcast, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching this, and give Heather a warm, celebration down in the comments too. And if you have any questions, get in touch with her. If you have any questions for me, let me know. Y'all, this was awesome. I'll talk to everybody next week. And Heather, I will see you in about 5 minutes on a different call.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Listen to this lady. She's amazing. Thank you for doing what you do, Whitney.
Thank you. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.